Chapter 1663. But I just don't like it. Gu Mengmeng said in a low, muffled voice, when we were in Z country, it was because the few of you were attracting attention with your exotic looks. Every day, there would be lascivious bees and butterflies trying to get close to you. That was why I decided to come to F country. I originally thought that your looks would not differ much from the locals here and those women would not stick to you anymore. Who knew that you all had a bitch-attracting buff, causing people to worry no matter where you go? Leah maintained his noble character of not letting others die and pointed at Elvis and said, "Meng Meng, I'm innocent. The females in my medical team have long been kicked out by me. Even the corpses I use for dissection are male. I know my Meng Meng hates other females touching me the most, so I love myself very much and will not give those bitches a chance to get close to me." As Leah said that, he even transformed his beast ears and rubbed them against Gu Mengmeng's hand, looking like he was begging for praise and love. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head in satisfaction before reaching out to rub Lee's beast ears. She looked at Leah with a "you're still the most obedient" expression, causing Lee's heart to flutter before a little fox seductive fragrance was released. Snakel frowned and grabbed Leah by the back of his neck, throwing him to the other side of the boat. He said coldly, "Don't do it in public, it'll be troublesome to deal with the aftermath." You're just jealous that Meng Meng dotes on me. Right. Snakel admitted openly. In this family, compared to Elvis, the first partner, he was even more jealous of Leah, who could always control Toming's emotions. This shameless fellow really carried out the principle of being undefeatable when one was the most despicable. After throwing Leah away, Elvis sat beside Gu Mengmeng and held her little hand, saying, "Everything I have belongs to you. I won't even allow the air around me to be contaminated by other females. So don't worry, I don't have that bitch-attracting buff." Gu Mengmeng nodded her head in agreement. After all, in the years before she grew up, Snakel was really so extreme that even his own mother did not allow him to speak to him. In order to give her a complete him, he was misunderstood as a mute for so many years. He really didn't have a bitch-sucking buff. Gu Mengmeng retracted her little hand and took the initiative to wrap it around Snake's neck. She patted his back lightly and sniffled as she responded with a "mm." Snake then smiled, then pointed at Gregory and said, "As for him, he could guard Moda Mountain for 1,000 years without any status, just to exchange for your peace of mind. Although I'm by your side now, I'm just in the awkward position of a guardian beast." The 4 words, "I can't get what I want," were like shackles tied around his neck. You are his dream, and he will not rest until he dies. His eyes have never moved away from you. He exudes a strong sense of "this bird has an owner" from head to toe. No matter what kind of B*tch she is, she wouldn't have laid her eyes on a piece of wood like him who has no blind spots and is impervious to everything. Gu Mengmeng looked up in the direction of Snake's words and met Gregory's deep and passionate eyes. He did not have time to dodge and just met Gu Mengmeng's gaze. Chapter 1664. Gu Mengmeng smiled at Gregory. Her feelings towards him were rather complicated. If it was love, it did not seem to be considered. But the guilt was real. Back then, he had broken his wings and blinded his eyes, sacrificing his life to protect Snake for 1,000 years. After Snake's return, his identity became an embarrassment. If she did not allow him to stay by her side, then he would have nowhere to go. After all, to the beast world, he was someone who had died 1,000 years ago. So Gu Mengmeng gave him the identity of a guardian beast and let him stay. After so many years of interaction, Gu Mengmeng had actually thought of giving him a chance to become a full member. Because no matter if he was a beast pet or a guardian beast, Gregory was already her male. But Gregory was too well behaved and guarded his identity as a guardian beast to the death. If Gu Mengmeng did not give any orders, he would not say a word, as though he did not exist. As for mating, Gu Mengmeng could not possibly give an order. Gregory, come over and lie down for me, I want to clap for love with you. Right? No matter how experienced she was, Gu Mengmeng was still a woman. Such words were too shameful and she really could not say it. So one could not say it, while the other was unwilling to take the initiative. The two of them dragged it on and on. The longer it dragged, the harder it was for them to say it, and slowly, it became like this. Gu Mengmeng shifted her gaze away and looked back at Elvis. Elvis pursed his lips and could not say a word for a while. He was not as eloquent as Leah, nor did he understand the rules of this world like Snake, who had lived here for more than 10 years. He did not know how to communicate with Xiao Meng. He could not even understand what the so-called bitch-sucking buff was. But he only knew one thing. His Xiao Meng was suspecting him of being unfaithful. This was a very serious accusation, but he did not know how to defend himself. That damned female just now had really stuck close to him. Even though he had sent her flying with a kick, she was still trying to stick to him. Could it be that the keep away from strangers aura from his entire body was only effective on wild beasts? The females in this world did not have any sense of danger. Frowning, Elvis tightened his arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist. His throat felt tight and his heart was flustered, but he did not know what to say. Staring at Gu Mengmeng for a while, he could only force out a sentence, Xiao Meng. Gu Mengmeng also knew that Elvis was a man of action and it was almost impossible for him to say sweet nothings. But even though she was unhappy, she would not really suspect Elvis of cheating. After all, she knew better than anyone how much her partners loved her. Not wanting to make things difficult for Elvis, she looked up at him and said, I don't like other females getting close to you. All right. Elvis nodded his head seriously and replied, I will eat whoever dares to come near me. Gu Mengmeng was amused by Elvis's serious look. She leaned on Elvis's chest with a smile and said, That's not necessary, but the next time another woman approaches you, tell her, I have a wife, stay away from me. That will do. All right. Elvis always accepted all of Gu Mengmeng's requests without any objections. Chapter 1665. This trip to this small town was not just for sightseeing. Elvis had his eyes on the reward offered by the behind-the-scenes boss and decided to attend his underground fight. So Gu Mengmeng brought along her entire family to accompany Elvis to meet the behind-the-scenes boss. She had thought that the meeting would be held at some office building or office, but she did not expect the other party to suggest a small dock in a remote town. When she reached the designated location, Gu Mengmeng was momentarily dazed. Not because of anything else, but because she recognized the so-called behind-the-scenes boss with one look. Frowning, Gu Mengmeng sat on her little boat and did not move. And her males followed her gaze the moment she frowned. When they saw the person sitting upright, their murderous aura overflowed and could not be concealed. Cole. Leo was the first to murmur softly. He and Elvis had died in Cole's hands before. Although it had been 1,000 years, that grudge had long dissipated in the long river of time, and those past conflicts and grudges had long been put down. But, no matter when, the person who made Gu Mengmeng frown deserved to die. This was the consensus that the 4 males of the Qing family could reach without any discussion. Gu Mengmeng sensed that the atmosphere was not right, and understood that her momentary shock had given her men the wrong hint, so she hurriedly adjusted her expression and said, Don't be like this, I am not angry. After becoming a beast deity, Gu Mengmeng's state of mind had become much more stable. Many things that she could not understand and could not see through in the past gradually became clear. As the saying goes, those closely involved cannot see clearly. Just like what Qi Xian had said before, Cole was good at scheming and often set up traps to drag her into it. But if one were to think about it carefully, she was the one who ultimately benefited from every situation. It was just that she did not like him, so everything he did was despicable, dirty and unforgivable in her eyes. And in the end, In order to protect her and fulfill her wish to obtain the spirit of the rocky cliffs, he did not hesitate to force her to kill him with her own hands, causing him to sink into the deepest despair and the most painful state. As time passed, the hatred in her heart had long faded to the point that it could no longer be found. If they had not met again today, Gu Mengmeng thought that what Cole was most worried about would have happened. After all, that person had only begged, "Would rather you hate me than forget me." But now, she had forgotten about him. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mengmeng led the way to the dock and sat in front of Cole. Cole tilted his head and looked at Gu Mengmeng. After staying silent for a long time, he spoke in fluent Chinese. "I feel that I should know you, right?" The corners of Gu Mengmeng's lips twitched as she smiled. After not seeing him for so many years, Gu Mengmeng had once thought that Cole was completely dead. She did not expect that his obsession with her would allow him to pass through the cracks in the environment and arrive in her world. Unfortunately, they were not fated to be together. So even though they were in the same world, he still couldn't meet her, and he couldn't even remember her. Perhaps. Gu Mengmeng had never imagined that she could face the man she hated so much. "You've been searching for my man all over the world, we really need to get to know each other." Chapter 1666. Looks like you really like wooden combs. Cole smiled, then took out a silver briefcase and opened it in front of everyone. Turning around to face Gu Mengmeng and the rest, he said, "This is the wooden comb I mentioned in the video. As long as you are willing to fight, you can take it away now. Aren't you afraid that we will go back on our words and run away after taking the item?" Gu Mengmeng asked with a chuckle. Cole laughed hoarsely, and when he looked up at Gu Mengmeng, there was an indescribable gentleness in his gaze, with a hint of pampering that even he himself felt was unexplainable. He said, "He won't." "Oh." Gu Mengmeng was still smiling as she looked at Cole, as if waiting for him to explain. Cole was a little agitated, but he did not understand why he was agitated. He just felt that it was a dream come true to be able to calmly talk to the young lady in front of him about unrelated matters. As a result, he, who had never been fed up with other people's stupidity and was unwilling to explain to anyone, now seemed to have endless patience and was willing to explain every single detail to the young lady. He only hoped that she could sit in front of him with a smile, even for a second longer. "He wants the wooden comb, I want him to fight. Boxing was a piece of cake for him, and it was a piece of cake for me to find more, better, and more special combs. We can provide each other with what the other party needs the most. Isn't this the best cooperation agreement? Of course, he can take the wooden comb and leave now, anyway I can't beat any of them. But it's obviously not a wise move to give up more and better opportunities in the future just for a wooden comb." As Cole spoke, he looked up and his gaze swept past Elvis's face, stopping on Lee's face. He smiled and asked, "What do you think?" Lee's face hung his usual gentle and polite smile. That was his usual expression when facing people other than Gu Mengmeng. He did not reply to Cole's question, because he knew that as the first partner in the family, other than Elvis himself, only Gu Mengmeng had the right to give her opinions and opinions. The clan's rules couldn't be broken. Regardless of whether he was a beast king or some other identity, he couldn't overstep the clan's rules. Even someone like Snake, who never followed the rules, only made a fuss with Elvis about snatching his first partner on the surface. He had never done anything substantial. After all, unless she killed Elvis, she would never be able to snatch the title of first partner away from him. Regardless of how strong Elvis was now or whether they had the ability to kill him. Just the fact that they would not do anything that would upset Meng Meng meant that no one would really covet the position of Elvis's first partner. Since his position was stable, then for the harmony of the family, in order to make Meng Meng more comfortable, they naturally would not do anything to disrupt the order of the family. It was one thing for them to fool around when they had a good relationship. But when it came to serious matters, they followed the rules of the beast world. The first partner could not be disobeyed or disobeyed. Leah ignored Cole, but Cole did not feel awkward. He just turned his gaze back to Gu Mingming's face. There was no reason. He just knew that although the four men looked like they were all important figures, the one who could really make the decisions in this situation was this weak and adorable little woman in front of him. Chapter 1667. Gu Mengmeng did not converse too much with Cole. Since the matters of the past had gone with the wind, forgetting each other in the pugilistic world was the best ending for both of them. She did not want Cole to remember those past events in the beast world. His infatuation was a burden to her. Elvis took the wooden comb and left with Gu Mengmeng after asking about the date and location of the underground fight. On the way back to the hotel, Elvis kept hugging Gu Mengmeng. He remained silent for a long time before saying, "I didn't know he was the boss behind the scenes." "It doesn't matter." Gu Mengmeng smiled at Elvis and said, "To me, he is not special. He is the same as anyone else, so you don't have to blame yourself." Yes, Elvis felt very uncomfortable. He had never thought that he would become the opportunity for Gu Mengmeng to meet Cole again. He tightened his grip on Gu Mengmeng and said, "Then do you still want this wooden comb?" "Of course." Gu Mengmeng took the wooden comb from Elvis and smiled. "Didn't you say that whoever gets this wooden comb will be blessed with happiness? You went through so much trouble to get it for me, how can I not want it?" Elvis smiled and kissed Gu Mengmeng's face, saying, "Then I will help you comb your hair." "All right." Gu Mengmeng sat up straight and let Elvis start combing her hair. Strangely enough, Leo was especially talented in cooking, while Elvis's dark cuisine had not improved even after 1,000 years of rebirth. But Elvis's obsession with Gu Mengmeng's hair allowed him, a man who could easily break someone's arm, to learn several exquisite hairstyles in just over a week. He was equipped with a mobile phone, but other than taking pictures of Gu Mengmeng, he could only use it to read various hairstyles from the app. Strangely, he had a photographic memory when it came to hairstyles. As long as he looked at it once, he would be able to do it on Gu Mengmeng's head. Moreover, he would make slight adjustments according to Gu Mengmeng's face shape and clothing. He was practically the Gu family's teacher Tony. What Gu Mengmeng did not know was that the reason why Elvis was so obsessed with her hair was because he had coincidentally seen an ancient popular science post about married couples. He said that although it was common for men in ancient times to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, only the first wife could be called a wife. He also said that only the husband could untie his wife's hair, and then embrace each other, loving each other like glue. If his first wife died early, he only needed to break the wooden comb she used into 2 pieces and place one half of it in her coffin and the other half on his body. In this way, no matter where he went, he would be able to find her and never be separated from her again. Gu Mengmeng had 4 partners. Although Gregory was not official, based on everything he had done for Gu Mengmeng, Elvis still acknowledged him as a family member. Therefore, he had to gather 4 wooden combs. Only then would he be able to have all the people by her side accompany her forever. Although, he also wanted to monopolize it. But he couldn't bear for her to suffer, couldn't bear for her to be incomplete, couldn't bear for her to have even a trace of regret. But he had never told anyone about these. He only monopolized Gu Mengmeng's hair as the first partner and did not allow anyone else to touch it. He was the first wife. Although it was just a title, he was not willing to give it to anyone else. The underground boxing match that Cole had arranged was to be held a week later. As the incident of Elvis killing the boss of the Black Fist in seconds was already known to everyone underground, the moment the news of Elvis participating in the match spread, the entire underground boxing world was in an uproar. It was hard to get a seat in the audience. A match that did not require any marketing to be so popular naturally did not need to be dragged on for too long. Aside. Chapter 1668. Usually, in underground fights, the contestants would not use their real names. They would choose a more impressive nickname, similar to a celebrity stage name. And Elvis's nickname was given by Cole. Whether it was a coincidence or not, he chose the two words Wolf King. When Gu Mengmeng saw this nickname, she could not help but laugh. He really knows how to name things. If you don't like it, I'll ask him to change it. Elvis wrapped his arms around Gu Mingming's slender waist and stood straight behind her, acting as a human cushion so that she could lean into his arms anytime. It would save some energy and make it more comfortable. He had heard the nickname Wolf King for thousands of years and was already numb to it. He did not care about Gu Mingming's other identities other than being the first partner. So if she did not like it, he naturally did not mind changing it to something else. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. Wolf King is very good. He looks majestic and domineering. Then what about Fox King? Leo was naturally charming. Every frown and smile of his exuded a seductive charm, making one's teeth itch with hatred. One must bite him to vent their anger. Gu Mengmeng snorted at him. You're everywhere. Weren't you the one who insisted on me being the spare tire? Leah frowned in aggrievement. If anything happens to him later, aren't you counting on me to treat him? We haven't even recited our scriptures and you're already hitting a monk. Is there a flirtatious monk like you? Gu Mengmeng pinched Lee's waist. She gritted her teeth and whispered into his ear. Are you afraid that others don't know you're a fox? How dare you act coquettishly in public? If I don't do this, how can I attract your attention? After all, I climbed up from being a beast pet. I naturally don't forget to flirt so that I won't lose your favor. Don't you think so? My queen Mengmeng, Get lost. Gu Mengmeng rolled her eyes at Leah and ignored him. She then turned to look at Elvis. He's just a normal person. Go easy on him. Everyone is just trying to make a living. Don't easily cripple him and ruin his livelihood. All right. Elvis smiled gently, accepting all of Gu Mengmeng's requests. But Gu Mengmeng changed the topic and said with a serious expression, you are also not allowed to get hurt. If I see the other party injuring you, don't expect me to agree to let you join the underground boxing anymore. Cole had already shown the other wooden comb to Elvis. If he won this round and was willing to continue the next round, he would give him the goddess comb that he had obtained from the ancient tomb in Z country. It was said that it was the bone comb used by Nuwa, thus, it was almost certain that Elvis would have his next fight a month after this one. Elvis wanted that goddess's comb because it was said to have the ability to attract good fortune and avoid calamity. It was stained with Nuwa's fairy aura and even demons and ghosts had to avoid it. Although he had never seen a demon before, and the four of them should be the legendary demons and they were at the top level, he was willing to fight for it for Gu Mengmeng regardless if it was real or fake. Don't worry. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead. I won't let myself get hurt. With that, Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng to the spectator stand on the second floor. That was the VIP viewing room that Cole had specially prepared for Gu Mengmeng. It had soundproof single-sided bulletproof glass. Even if Gu Mengmeng could see the arena clearly from the second floor, the people outside would not be able to see her. Out of topic. Chapter 1669. The audience downstairs had already entered the arena one after another. Other than Gu Mengmeng and her family sitting in the VIP room on the second floor, Cole also came uninvited. After all, this was his home ground and Gu Mengmeng did not have the right to chase him away, so she did not say much and allowed Cole to sit beside her. The sofas here were all independent seats, so even though Cole was sitting beside her, there was actually a small coffee table between them, so they were not really sitting next to each other. And Gu Mengmeng's thoughts were all on the arena below, so she did not have any extra thoughts to share with Cole. The surrounding lights dimmed with a click, and the audience became quiet. The spotlight suddenly lit up, then Elvis walked out from the resting area for the fighters. The audience was in an uproar for 2 seconds, then suddenly became quiet again, as if they were looking at the strange clothes that Elvis was wearing, printed with the words, I have, wife, you are away from me. She came to watch a boxing match but was still stuffed with dog food. She really wanted to curse. The staff used the walkie-talkie to communicate with Cole, saying that Elvis insisted on not removing the clothes, to which Cole only replied with "let him be," and did not say anything else. Elvis stood in the middle of the arena, looking straight at the second floor. Even though there was only one side of the glass, he knew that his Xiao Meng was looking at him from there. Just thinking about it made his mood improve. The resting room door on the other side opened, and a man wearing a hooded cape walked out. Gu Mengmeng instinctively took a look, and just one look was enough to make her shocked. Another acquaintance. Leah also laughed softly, his large tail appearing in front of Cole without any scruples, circling around Gu Mingming's waist. He sat on the armrest of Gu Mingming's little sofa, one hand on the back of the sofa behind Gu Mengmeng, while the other held Gu Mingming's little hand and played with it. He smiled. It's actually him. Ha, this time, Elvis will not only tear off one of his arms, he might not even have the life to leave the arena. Snake had Gu Mingming's shared memories, so he also recognized this person who was on the arena. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, and his eyes burned with a sinister emerald green color. His voice was cold, and he said, "Why don't we change the person? Let me see what kind of fun underground boxing is like. You are the Prince of F country, how can you appear in an underground fighting ring? Don't create more trouble." Gu Mengmeng held her forehead and said, "How can there be such a coincidence in this world?" Cole looked at Gu Mengmeng in confusion. He could not understand their conversation, but he understood that they seemed to know the person who challenged Elvis. So Cole pointed to the side of the arena and said, "His woman owes me a lot of money. I was going to sell her to a sex slave agency to repay the debt." But this man stood out and said that he was willing to challenge Elvis. If he won, he would take his reward as repayment of the debt. If he lost, he would take his compensation as repayment of the debt. Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, "If you win, you have to pay with your money, and if you lose, you have to pay with your life." He really hasn't changed at all. For a woman like that, he can always risk his life. "You know her?" Cole asked softly. Gu Mengmeng did not answer, but asked back, "That woman, how much money does she owe you?" "Not much, just 4 million USD. Cole answered honestly. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "I will return this 4 million for her, but I want to let that man live." Aside from the topic. Chapter 1670. All right. Cole did not even have to think before he agreed. After agreeing, Cole was a little puzzled. He was not puzzled why he agreed, but puzzled that not only did he agree, he even wanted to add, "You don't have to return the money." What puzzled him the most was that he did not dare to say what he wanted to add. He did not know why, but he seemed to know that this young girl in front of him, under her polite and distant appearance, had a strong sense of rejection towards him. If he displayed too much intimacy and friendliness, she would immediately hide far away. So if he still wanted to see her, he could not cross certain boundaries. Even though they did not know each other, he knew very well where those boundaries that could not be seen or touched were. This was very strange, really very strange. Thinking about this, Cole's gaze towards Gu Mengmeng deepened. But Gu Mengmeng did not have the heart to care about what Cole was thinking. Her gaze was fixated on the two people on the arena. Clearly, Elvis had also recognized his opponent. His face, which had been cold to everyone other than Gu Mengmeng for thousands of years, actually cracked into a smile. But that smile was so eerie that it made people shiver in fear. The reason why the audience bought tickets was to witness Elvis's breathtaking, instant kill. But the situation changed because of his opponent's appearance. Elvis did not seem to be in a hurry to end the battle as quickly as before. Instead, he started torturing his opponent on the arena as if he was having fun. It was not wrong for him to promise not to hurt his opponent easily. But this did not include the fact that his opponent had hurt Gu Mengmeng before, and had almost broken her neck. Elvis squeezed his opponent's shoulder blades forcefully, causing his opponent's arms to hang limply by his side. His pained cry made the audience extremely excited because of the bloody scene, but it did not evoke any pity from Elvis. Then, Elvis raised his leg and crushed both of his knees, causing him to lose all interest in life like a puppet with its strings cut. Elvis grabbed his neck and lifted him up. When their eyes were at the same level, his azure blue eyes squinted and he instinctively bared his teeth. His opponent's eyes were already filled with red veins and were even bulging slightly. His limbs did not have any ability to resist and he could only let Elvis deprive him of air bit by bit, putting him to death. He had seen Elvis's previous match and knew how strong of an opponent he was. Hence, he did not expect to leave this arena alive. But he did not understand why Elvis did not finish him off cleanly like how he did with his previous opponent. Instead, he deliberately tortured him with hatred, as if he wanted him to clearly feel his life slipping away every second before he died. Had he ever offended someone like this Shura before? Hubby. Gu Mengmeng pushed open the window on the second floor and called out softly. Although the people around the arena were making a ruckus, the Beast King's hearing was extremely good. Moreover, Elvis had always been sensitive to Gu Mengmeng's voice, so he naturally would not miss her call. Releasing his grip, Elvis threw his opponent, who was limp like a puddle of mud, onto the ground and went up to the second floor without looking back. Chapter 1671. In the eyes of the audience, the dying man was not a life, but a flaw in the competition. It was as if his death was supposed to be the climax of the day, but it ended abruptly, which was rather disappointing. But after all, the outcome had already been determined. Even if it was an underground boxing match, there was no rule that said one had to be killed to end the match. Moreover, the Wolf King had already left. Their grumbles could not change that man's mind. So although it was a pity, the audience still gradually left under the guidance of the staff. After all the irrelevant people had left, Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng down from the second floor. Other than the 4 men from the Gu family, Cole also followed behind. That scene was a little strange. Those 5 men clearly had the aura of a king, but they were willing to become stars because of that woman, just to hold her in their palms and shine with her brilliance. In this scene, the petite figure became the finishing touch, causing people to involuntarily focus their gazes on her. Cole glanced over and someone moved a small sofa over and placed it on the stage. The blood had long been wiped clean, but the smell of blood lingered for a long time. Gu Mengmeng sat on the small sofa, looking at the man lying on the ground and the trembling woman kneeling beside him like a queen. Is it worth it? Gu Mengmeng asked this question without any head or tail. The man raised his head with difficulty and met Gu Mengmeng's eyes. He was a little dazed, as if he knew the woman in front of him, but could not remember when he had seen her before. Strangely, even if the other party's words were without head or tail, he seemed to understand what she meant. Although it was difficult, he still curled his lips and looked at the woman kneeling beside him. He tried his best to smile and said, "For my own woman, nothing is not worth it." Gu Mengmeng gave a helpless chuckle. Some people were just like that. No matter how much time had passed, that infatuation, that foolishness would never change. So, Gu Mengmeng shifted her gaze to the woman beside him and asked in a seemingly nonchalant manner, "This man is already crippled now. I think he will no longer have the ability to take care of you in the future. Not only can he not earn money to repay your debts, he will even become your burden. Why don't we make a deal? You sell him to me, and I'll pay back the $4 million you owe me for you. How about that?" "You? Why do you want to buy him?" The woman seemed to be very afraid of Gu Mengmeng, so much so that even though the man could not even crawl up, she still instinctively hid beside the man, as if that would make her feel safe. Gu Mengmeng prodded herself under her chin, as if she was thinking about a question for a long time. Then, she said, "Nothing much, I guess I'll just cut open my stomach and sell my organs." After all, the risk and cost of transporting live bodies is lower, and the price can be higher. "No, I'm not selling." The woman suddenly took a step forward and opened her arms. She was clearly trembling in fear, but she bit her lower lip to prevent herself from retreating. "I will return the 4 million. No matter what, I will return it. I'm not selling Quentin, not selling." Gu Mengmeng smiled at her reaction. It seemed that his stupidity had not changed. However, she was no longer who she was in the past. If that was the case, they might have a chance to turn things around and not repeat the mistakes of the past. "Oh, then tell me, how are you going to repay that 4 million? Gu Mengmeng narrowed her eyes and probed. "Out of topic, yes, that's right. The familiar person who was beaten up was Quentin. Did you guess correctly, my little baby?" Chapter 1672. The woman bit her lower lip, then looked up at Gu Mengmeng and said, "Wait a while. Just wait a while more. When our children are cured, I am willing to go with you. You can sell me to a sex slave house or sell my organs. As long as I see my children and Quentin safe and sound, I will go with you." "Children?" Gu Mengmeng squinted her eyes and asked softly. The woman seemed to have been touched at the softest spot in her heart. She nodded and said, "Quentin and I have 3 children, but these 3 children were not in good health from the moment they were born. In order to cure them, Quentin and I spent all our savings. My eldest son was found to have kidney failure and had to get a new kidney to save his life. He could not wait for the queue for a kidney source, so I could only pay a high price to buy an underground kidney source for him. That's why I owe a debt of $4 million. You're and Quentin's children?" Gu Mengmeng asked. The woman nodded and looked at Quentin with a gentle gaze. Gu Mengmeng leaned back and smiled softly, saying, "Leah." Leah stiffened his neck and said unwillingly, "I hold grudges very well. It's not a problem to kill him, but to save him, humph." "Then who was the one who created the opportunity for him?" Gu Mingming's light sentence made Leo lose his temper instantly. Back then, he was the one who deliberately spoiled Nina and spoiled her more and more. He allowed Quentin to lay his hands on Gu Mengmeng, and he was the one who appeared at the crucial moment. Even though he had not fallen in love with Gu Mengmeng at that time, but in the end, Nina and Quentin's tragedy was largely due to him adding fuel to the fire. He did not feel guilty. To Leah, other than Gu Mengmeng, everyone else was a chess piece on the chessboard. There was no turning back once he made a move. He did not feel guilty towards Nina and Quentin, but he did towards Gu Mengmeng. So, when Gu Mengmeng said that, Leah could not say anything else. He twitched his lips and walked to Quentin's side, starting to check on his injuries. Nina and Quentin did not understand what she meant and could only look at Gu Mengmeng blankly. The corners of Gu Mengmeng's lips curled up as she smiled. "I have to make up for the sins my man has done. Leah will heal Quentin's injuries and we will arrange for professionals to treat your sons." Gu Mengmeng was talking about how Leah had ruined an entire family for his own goals. But Nina and Quentin did not know that, they just thought that it was because Elvis had hurt Quentin too badly that Gu Mengmeng could not bear it. Thank you, thank you." Nina was so grateful that she wanted to grab Gu Mengmeng's hand. But Elvis frowned and raised his leg, wanting to kick. Cole's reaction was faster. He stepped in front of Nina and said, "I can arrange a job for you in the boxing arena. It might be a little tough, but the pay is not bad. Are you willing?" Nina looked up at Cole and nodded hurriedly. I'm willing. Thank you so much. I'm not afraid of hard work. As long as I can make money to treat my son, I'm not afraid of any hardship. Cole smiled and did not say anything else. He just signaled Nina to retreat back to her original position and not go near Gu Mengmeng. Although Nina did not understand why, she still retreated back obediently. Then, she looked at Gu Mengmeng and said, "Kind lady, I, Nina, will remember your kindness for life. No matter what you need in the future, I'm willing to be your slave. I will definitely repay you." Aside from the topic, who could guess why Nina and Quentin's children were always in poor health? Chapter 1673. In the future. Gu Mengmeng smiled softly and said, "In the future, it's better if we don't meet again." With that, Gu Mengmeng gave Elvis a look and Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng out of the arena. Leah gave Quentin basic emergency treatment and then asked Cole to arrange for someone to send him to Lee's private clinic. Because of Elvis and Quentin's fight, the tickets for the next month's fight were even more popular. Those who managed to buy the tickets were naturally in a good mood, while those who couldn't were full of complaints. Requests for a rematch rose one after another, but no matter how many good wooden combs Cole took out, none of them caught Elvis's eye. He only agreed to fight again next month, as long as that goddess bone comb. Because Gu Mengmeng said that in the beast world, it was actually their family that harmed Nina and Quentin, so she requested Leah to personally treat Quentin's injuries and their child. Leah couldn't reject Gu Mengmeng's request, so even though he was extremely unwilling, he still stayed in the private clinic to treat Quentin's family. It was just that he didn't charge medical fees, but there was an especially strange rule, which was that family members were not allowed to visit. To put it bluntly, it meant that Nina was not allowed to enter his clinic, or else he wouldn't treat her. As for Snake, he was the prince of F country after all. Although it was absurd for him to leave his family matters behind and run to Z country to study in a third-rate university, but his family members couldn't object to it, so they just let him be. But now that he was back, the family matters started to pester him again. After all, he was in charge of the family, who would dare to make decisions on their own? Big and small matters piled up, causing Snake to be unable to attend to them. Gu Mengmeng smiled and told Snake to focus on earning money to support the family. After all, she had just squandered 4 million USD. Snake was the only one in the family with financial resources, so he naturally couldn't slack off. Snake couldn't do anything to Gu Mengmeng, so he could only agree. Then, he sat in the study to deal with the mountain of work. As for Gregory, it was rare for him to take the initiative to speak to Gu Mengmeng, saying that he wanted to visit Quentin at Lee's clinic. Gu Mengmeng was a little surprised. She knew that Elvis and Leah knew Quentin. Snake had shared memories with her, so it wasn't strange that he knew Quentin. But Gregory, Gu Mengmeng thought for a while before realizing that Gregory was a bird and so was Quentin. They were born together on Moda Mountain, how could they not know each other? Nodding her head, Gu Mengmeng said considerately, "It's all right, I have Elvis with me. You can go." Just like that, Gu Mengmeng and Elvis had a rare couple time. As for being able to enjoy Gu Mengmeng to himself openly, Elvis was very happy to see it happen. Gu Mengmeng didn't want Elvis to hug her, instead, she held hands like a normal couple. She looked up at Elvis and said, "Hubby, strictly speaking, we got married before dating, and then we had a child before we even had any sweet time together. The process was extremely rushed. It's rare that I'm free today. Why don't we go on a date?" Elvis chuckled and said, "That's right, I have been promoted from old godmother to boss, then hubby, but I have never been your boyfriend." But Leah and Snake had been. Chapter 1674. Gu Mengmeng smiled as she tiptoed and kissed Elvis on the cheek. "Hey, let's go fill in the blanks today, alright?" "Alright." Elvis could only give Gu Mengmeng his endless indulgence. No matter what her request was, he would only reply with this one word. Gu Mengmeng leaned her head on Elvis's shoulder. As they walked, she thought about where to go for a date. The cinema did not seem to be a good choice. Most of the movies here were in F country's language and there were no subtitles. Gu Meng Meng and Elvis basically could not understand them. Eating was also not a good idea, because Elvis's appetite was extraordinarily exaggerated. Gu Meng Meng could not bear to let him not eat his fill just to accommodate the atmosphere, but if she let him eat to his heart's content, they might be surrounded by reporters called by their boss for an interview. After thinking about it, Gu Meng Meng finally decided to go to the amusement park. Although it was a little childish, Elvis had never been there before. It was always good to have something new. Although Snake could not accompany them, he had arranged for a private car. So Gu Meng Meng and Elvis were quickly sent to the entrance of the most famous amusement park in the area. Gu Meng Meng bought the tickets and the two of them entered the amusement park happily. Elvis did not really like the crowded atmosphere. The Beast King's hearing and sense of smell were too sensitive. Everything here made him feel noisy and the air was filled with all sorts of strange smells, making him uncomfortable. But looking at Gu Meng Meng's sparkling big eyes, he felt that these discomforts were insignificant and could be tolerated. He wrapped his arms around Gu Meng Meng's shoulders and said in a low voice, "There are too many people. Let me protect you so that you don't get separated." Gu Meng Meng nodded and responded with a yeah. Her gaze drifted around and Gu Meng Meng immediately set her eyes on the most thrilling roller coaster in the world. If it was in the past, she would not dare to challenge this kind of thing. But during those years as the messenger of the beast deity in the beast world, she felt like jumping off a building every time she saw Wang Xiaoxin. After a few times, she became more daring. Most importantly, she wanted to see Elvis panicking later on. It would be extremely interesting. Although Elvis had never played it before, he had a rough idea of what it would feel like when he queued up. She queued for a long time, but this did not diminish Gu Meng Meng's enthusiasm. When the safety belt was buckled, Gu Meng Meng was still very excited. Turning her head to look at Elvis, she held his big hand and said in an especially imposing manner, "If you're afraid, call me out. I'll protect you, understand?" Elvis curled his lips, his expression calm and doting. Should he respond with a cry of panic to satisfy her little desire? All right, in order to coax his precious Xiao Mei, he had long thrown away his pride and whatnot. All right. Elvis replied concisely, before grabbing Gu Meng Meng's little hand, holding it tightly in his palm. The entire roller coaster ride took about 4 minutes. When they returned to the starting point after one round, other than feeling a little dizzy from the spinning, Elvis did not feel particularly scared. Chapter 1675. When the staff came up to help remove the safety belt, Elvis felt his arm being pricked by someone. He raised his head in alarm and looked at the staff who had his cap pressed down to the very bottom. That person revealed an evil smile and said in broken Chinese, "You woman, if you are fine, be obedient." Elvis immediately turned back to look at Gu Meng Meng and realized that she had already been helped down from the other side of the roller coaster by the staff. The staff said that Gu Meng Meng had a heat stroke and needed to rest while taking her away from the staff passageway. Elvis wanted to chase after her but realized that the safety belt was still fastened tightly in front of his chest. He wanted to push the safety belt away but it did not budge at all. Only then did he realize that he could not exert any strength, and the angrier he got, the more dizzy he felt. Even his vision started to blur and he clenched his teeth but could not support his consciousness that was slowly fading away. Only when Elvis had completely fainted did the staff unfasten the safety belt. He turned back and a few people who were pretending to be tourists came over and carried Elvis away. And all these did not attract anyone's attention in the amusement park. When she woke up again, Gu Meng Meng felt weak all over and her eyelids were heavy and dry. She did not even have the strength to lift her head and rub her eyes. You're awake." An unfamiliar man's voice sounded from not far away. Gu Mengmeng turned her head and used her peripheral vision to see a silver-haired man sitting on a European-style armchair not far away. She guessed that he was about 60 years old. He did not look old and instead had the demeanor of a godfather in a gangster movie. The man sat there with his hands crossed and supporting himself with a walking stick. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with a faint smile. His Chinese pronunciation was not good, but it was considered above average among foreigners and he had no problem in basic communication. "Who are you?" Gu Mingming's voice was extremely weak and she panted after saying just 3 simple words. "Harold." The silver-haired old man said his name in F language like a gentleman and then translated it in Chinese, "You can also call me Harold." Purpose. Gu Mingming's physical strength was limited but she had no choice but to deal with the man to gain more time to regain control of her body. As long as she could move her hands, all she had to do was to scratch her ears and cheeks or beat her chest and the 4 men in her family would immediately appear here. By then, haha, I don't care if you are Harold or Hello Kitty. They would crush you into dregs. I mean no harm. Harold said, "I know you are Prince Snake's fiancé and I have no intention of becoming enemies with Prince Snake. So, even though it was a bit abrupt to invite you over, at least I still maintained my gentlemanly demeanor." He meant that he was already doing Snake a favor by putting her on the bed and making her unable to move. What else could he do? Was he going to be locked in the dungeon with a tiger stool and chilly water? Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and said, "When Snake comes, you can explain it to him like this and see if he will listen." Harold did not seem to take Gu Mingming's threat to heart. He did not want to be enemies with Snake, but that did not mean he was afraid of him. Otherwise, he would not have dared to target Gu Mengmeng. Making a "so what" expression, Harold did not continue Gu Mingming's words and instead revealed his true motive. "As long as you are willing to help me with a small matter, I will naturally send you back with my sincerest apologies." Out of topic, did you guys think that I would obediently hand out sweets just because I was an outsider? How could that be possible? I am so mischievous, but don't worry, the men in our family are all very strong. Anyone who tries to scheme against them will be courting death. Chapter 1676. The threat was obvious. If Gu Mengmeng obediently helped him with this small favor, he would let her go and give her an expensive apology. On the other hand, if she did not agree, then he would not let her go today. Furthermore, when he kidnapped her in the amusement park, everyone was wearing the uniform of the amusement park. Even if Snake found out about the amusement park, it would take him a lot of effort to trace it back to him. By then, she might have disappeared from this world forever. What else could Snake do in a situation where the dead could not testify? Gu Mengmeng smiled softly, without a trace of fear on her face. Harold's words carried a kind of self-evident craziness, arrogance, and even certainty. This was not the first time he had done something like this. Or perhaps, in his eyes, a young and ignorant little girl like her was really easy to scare. But he did not know that the young girl before him had lived for 1,000 years in the other world. This level of threat was really nothing in front of her. Admittedly, Gu Mengmeng did not have the powers of a beast king in the past. She could not use her slender hands to crush this little rascal who was pretending to be deep in front of her. But her partner could. I wonder what Mr. Harold would like me to help with. Gu Mengmeng said as she tried to move her fingers. Very good, the effects of the drug were gradually fading and her body was slowly regaining its self-control. It's very simple. As long as you can convince the bodyguard that Prince Snake arranged for you to stay under me and become my fighter, I will naturally give you an equivalent reward. Oh, you want to buy my man? Gu Mengmeng used both her hands to support her upper body on the bed. Harold was rather surprised to see Gu Mengmeng sitting up. But when he thought about how he did not want to offend Snake, he drugged Gu Mengmeng a little lighter than usual. Hence, the surprise flashed across his face and did not stay for long. No. I don't want to buy your man, I just want to buy your bodyguard. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and said, since you want to buy him, why don't you talk to him directly? Pausing for 2 seconds, Gu Mengmeng realized that an undetectable hint of awkwardness flashed across Harold's face. Thus, he understood and said, oh, I did talk to him, but he didn't listen to you at all. Let me guess. You must have used threats and carrots, but he just wouldn't budge. You couldn't do anything to him, so you used me as a breakthrough point, right? Harold coughed twice. Clearly, he felt a little ashamed that he couldn't do anything to a man, so he turned his attention to a little girl. But there was no other way. He wanted that man. Harold had been doing whatever he wanted in the underworld for so many years, but it had been a long time since he had that kind of crazy desire to conquer. He desperately wanted to see this arrogant and sinister man submit to him, become his most humble servant, the most docile servant, and the most vigilant guard. Gu Mengmeng did not miss the fervent look in Harold's eyes. She had seen this look too many times in the past 1,000 years. Raising her slender hand, Gu Mengmeng gently touched her collarbone. She smiled faintly and said, since you want him, you should tell him in person. If you don't even have the courage to face him, how can you do it? Aside from the topic, next episode, Summon Elvis. Was this considered a literary blockage? Chapter 1677. With that, Gu Mengmeng used her fingernails to lightly scratch the mark of the black wolf. A slight prickling sensation accompanied by a ray of white light. Elvis appeared behind Harold like an emissary from hell. Gu Mengmeng smiled softly and did not move at all. She watched as Harold's pupils trembled violently. Many years of living on the edge of a knife had made him more sensitive to danger than ordinary people. The fear in his heart was written all over his face, but he did not have the courage to turn back. The thick smell of blood enveloped his entire body and the cracking sound sounded like someone was moving the joints in his neck in preparation for an attack. The hand holding onto the walking stick had already started to tremble. He took a deep breath and suddenly swung it backwards. There was a button on the walking stick. After pressing it, a sharp blade would pop out from the side of the walking stick. If this full force landed, it should be able to slice a person into two. However, the blade he swung out did not touch anyone. He looked behind him in confusion and looked around. He did not believe that his senses would be wrong. The smell of blood was so thick, how could it be an illusion? What happened? You're covered in dirt. Gu Mingming's voice rang from the side of the bed. She sounded nonchalant, as if she was not aware that she was being kidnapped. It was as if she was talking to her husband in her own home. Harold suddenly turned back and raised his walking stick with both hands, looking at Gu Mengmeng who was lying on the bed defensively. And with this turn, he also saw that bewitching man covered in blood. The sinister aura around him was like that of a king stepping on thousands of skeletons in hell. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, emitting a cold light like the Grim Reaper's scythe. That pair of azure demonic eyes lifted up slightly, casually looking at Harold's nervous and flustered defense. As if looking at a dead man, he said calmly, "He's locked in a strange room. The walls are electrified, so he can't come out. I was worried that something would happen to you, but you did not summon me. So I was bored to death and bit a few males who came to my door to kill some time while I was waiting. You transformed." Gu Mengmeng completely ignored Harold. She only used her little hand to wipe away the blood at the corner of Elvis's mouth. She pouted coquettishly and said, "So dirty." No. No matter how fierce his murderous aura was, when his gaze met Gu Mingming's, there would always be a unique sense of gentleness. Casually transforming in this world will attract trouble. He wasn't afraid of trouble, but he didn't want Xiao Meng to be unable to stay in the world she loved because of the trouble he caused. Therefore, although he could open the door with one claw as long as he showed his true form, he held back in order not to cause trouble for Xiao Meng. Gu Mengmeng understood what Elvis was thinking, so she gave him an approving smile and patted his hand. This little old man wants to buy you. Do you think I should offer a sky-high price to scam him? After I take the money, you come back. Gu Mingming's tone was too obviously sarcastic and teasing. When she raised her head to look at Harold again, she could only feel his nervousness, wariness and fear. It was a stark contrast to the two people sitting on the bed, teasing each other affectionately. It was even a little comical. Chapter 1678. The Gu Mengmeng now was no longer the young lady who cried the entire night at the bonfire party during her coming-of-age ceremony when she had just arrived in the beast world. She had faced too much bloodshed in the beast world, so much so that she could think rationally and calmly when faced with life and death. Just like now. Elvis jumped up from the bed and pounced towards Harold. Harold immediately waved the walking stick in his hand and slashed at Elvis with the blade. But he was just a normal person. How could he fight against Elvis, who had the power of a beast king and had been through hundreds of battles? Before he could swing his walking stick halfway, he was already firmly stepped on by Elvis's four limbs. Harold was so shocked that he was tongue-tied. He could not understand how a human could suddenly turn into a huge wolf. The sharp fangs and dripping saliva in front of him magnified his fear infinitely. Only someone who had been squashed by a wolf at such a close distance would understand how terrifying that feeling of near death was. Elvis did not have the leisure to admire his struggle before death. He cleanly bit off his neck and threw his body out of the window. Then, he transformed back into a human, without a single speck of dirt on him. He was naked, with a head of thick black hair casually draped behind him. It was like a cloud dyed with ink, giving off a unique charm. The hideous bloodstains in the room were set off by the gentleness that only belonged to Gu Mengmeng, making it look like two red spider lilies blossoming on both sides of the yellow springs. And he was a fairy standing among the flowers. Dangerous, yet full of temptation. Because of his transformation, Elvis could no longer wear the clothes he was originally wearing. So, Gu Mengmeng casually pulled down the curtains and asked Elvis to tear it into a piece of cloth of suitable size. Then, she wrapped it around her waist to act as a temporary beast skin skirt. This way of dressing made Elvis feel at ease, much more comfortable than those clothes that restricted his movements. Wait for me here, I'll go settle some things and be back soon. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and asked, do you need me to call Leah over to help you? Elvis shook his head gently, then planted a light kiss on Gu Mengmeng's forehead. I'm your first partner, I must have the ability to protect you independently. Gu Mengmeng knew that males had their own pride. In the beast world, they must have the ability to hunt and defend against external enemies. In modern times, they also needed to have the strength to protect their women. She could not stop Elvis from doing it. He was a wolf, not a pet dog that she kept by her side. She would never keep him on a dog's leash and make him wag his tail at her side. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and kissed him lightly. Be careful. Elvis nodded and kissed her lips again. He told her to lie down and rest for a while. After all, the effects of the medicine in her body had not completely dissipated. After tucking her in, Elvis turned around and left. With Harold's head in his hand, he walked out of Gu Mengmeng's room, leaving bloody footprints behind. Gu Mengmeng did not resist the control of the drug in her body anymore. She relaxed her nerves and slowly fell asleep. When she woke up again, the four men in the house had gathered and were sitting by her bed. Drink some water. The moment she opened her eyes, Elvis helped her sit up and sent warm water to her lips, gently moistening her dry throat. Out of topic, to explain, Harold's neck was bitten off by Elvis and his body was thrown out of the window, but his head was still in the room. That was why it was said that he carried Harold's head out. Babies, don't be confused. Why did you say he carried his head after throwing it out? Chapter 1679. Gu Mengmeng sat up and drank some water. Leah walked up to her, cupped her little face and kissed it. I tested your blood just now. It's just a normal anesthetic. You just need to drink more water to metabolize it and you'll be fine. Yeah. Gu Mengmeng nodded. Actually, the effects of the anesthetic had almost worn off and she did not feel much after sleeping. When did you guys arrive? Gu Mengmeng looked at the three men who did not look too good and asked. Snake laughed coldly, asking, when did you hope that we would arrive? Or, did you hope that we would not appear at all? Was he angry? Gu Mengmeng blinked her eyes and looked at Snake's cold smile, feeling a little guilty. How could that be? I just because Elvis is your first partner, you let him do whatever he wants, isn't that right? Snakel interrogated. Gu Mengmeng shrunk her neck. She knew that she would definitely be scolded for not calling all her partners over at the first instance after such a thing happened. Her partners were just that weird. If you had good food to eat, fun to play with or any other good things, it was fine not to call them. But if you didn't call them when you were in trouble and especially when you were in danger, ha 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 ha, come at me if you have any complaints. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms, his entire body exuding a strong aura. He would not allow anyone to criticize or lecture Gu Mengmeng, no matter what she did wrong. Moreover, it was him who did not protect Gu Mengmeng that gave Harold the chance to take advantage of her today. Xiao Meng did not do anything wrong, why did she have to listen to others? Oh, you want to use your status as the first partner to pressure me again? Snake did not budge an inch. In terms of aura, he had been the Beast King for 1,000 years longer than Elvis. How could he lose to a male that he had once scolded as trash? So what if I am? Elvis was no longer the little wolf beast that could not retaliate against Snake. He would not back down in front of anyone when it came to protecting Gu Mengmeng and not letting her suffer. The authority of the first partner cannot be questioned. Does that include letting the female be in danger? Snake was not angry, just a simple sentence that stabbed straight into Elvis's heart. Today, he was the only one here. He should be protecting Xiao Meng with all his might. However, Harold had kidnapped Xiao Meng right under his nose. Clenching his fists, Elvis said coldly, it's my fault for not protecting Xiao Meng well. What do you want? Come at me directly, don't make things difficult for Xiao Meng. Snake laughed softly and said, come for you. Alright, let's see how much raging flames you just received today. Let's see how long it will take for me to wipe this gang off the face of the earth. Elvis did not mind at all and said, I'll be happy to keep you company. Gu Mengmeng rubbed her temples and said, all right, the two of you have not fought for almost 800 years. Is there a need to make such a big fuss over such a small matter today? Snake frowned and looked at Gu Mengmeng, asking, are you blaming me for making a mountain out of a molehill? Chapter 1680. Snake straightened his body and faced Gu Mengmeng, saying, small matter. Then do you know how the three of us came here? Gu Mengmeng shook her head and looked at Elvis in confusion. Elvis pursed his lips and sighed deeply, saying, I was handling the matter of receiving the fiery flames in the front hall. Harold's son Kiddo, the man whose arm was broken by me in the first black fist fight, sneaked into your room and tried to hurt you. The tip of the knife touched the mark on your chest and summoned Snake over. Gu Mengmeng was also shocked. She lowered her head and looked again. Indeed, there was a red dot on the head of the snake on her chest. It should be a wound. Snake then continued, the moment I came over, I saw the dagger stabbing into your heart. Gregory, me, Leah and Elvis, including your own lives were all hanging by a thread. To you, this is just a small matter, isn't it? Gu Mingming's aura instantly dropped and she said pitifully, I don't know, of course you don't know. Snake laughed coldly and said, if you knew, you would have summoned your most trusted first partner back to protect you, wouldn't you? In your eyes, only he is your partner and only he is worthy of your trust. If not for him, you would rather be alone in a state of protection than to summon me or Leah to protect you when you meet with trouble. Just how much trust do you have in him? As long as he is in the same building as you, you believe that he can protect you safe and sound. He is clearly not by your side, but you can still fall asleep defenselessly. Elvis obviously could not stand Snake criticizing Gu Mengmeng like that, but Gu Mengmeng could hear the fear hidden behind Snake's accusation. Pulling Elvis, who was about to explode, Gu Mengmeng opened her arms wide at Snake, gesturing for him to hug her. Although Snake was extremely angry, he was also extremely uneasy. So, without another word, he pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms and hugged her fiercely. He wished he could bury her in his heart and protect her at all times, so as to quell that fear. You were asleep, and I had to check your breathing every 2 or 3 minutes. I was so afraid that if I came half a second late, the dagger would have pierced your heart. I was so afraid that you weren't asleep but dead. You heartless, bad girl, how dare you protect him? Gu Mengmeng patted Snake's back gently and comforted him. I know I was wrong. I won't do such a heartless thing again. Don't worry, I'm fine now, right? Actually, Snake did not really want to fight with Elvis. He just urgently needed to vent the uneasiness in his heart, otherwise he would go crazy. As for Elvis, perhaps he also needed a battle like this to let his guilt be vented. Liar. Snake scolded softly. You're just a little liar. Your words cannot be trusted. Gu Mengmeng laughed softly. Elvis and Leah had long known that she was a little liar. She thought that at least in front of Snake and Gregory, she could maintain her credibility. Now, it seemed like she had gone bankrupt again. She looked at Gregory with a faint gaze and thought to herself. Yeah, this is the only fruit left. At least in Gregory's eyes, my credit limit cannot be overdrawn anymore. Aside from the topic, from now on, I, Elvis, have become the leader of the triads in F country. There should be applause here. Chapter 1681. After appeasing Elvis and Snake, Gu Mengmeng then turned towards Leah, who had been very quiet all along. This fellow was not behaving like a demon, but his style was not right. Leah, who caught Gu Mengmeng's gaze, then waved his tail and walked seductively to Gu Mengmeng's side. He half laid on Gu Mengmeng's knees and said in a flirtatious and coquettish manner, "You finally remembered me." Her scalp went numb. Elvis and Snake were both violent men, there was basically nothing that could not be solved with a fight. If there was, then they would fight twice. At most, once the door was closed, Gu Mengmeng would bring them back to the grassland illusion and let them fight to their heart's content. But Leah was different. If he was annoyed, he would definitely torture Gu Mengmeng's body. Sometimes, Gu Mengmeng would rather Leah hang her up and give her a good beating, but Leah would not do it. He would only stop after she remembered it for the rest of her life. Leah, Gu Mengmeng's smile was uglier than crying. She begged for mercy by calling out his mushy nickname, her eyes filled with fawning. Lee's large tail was wagging behind him, the smile on his face was still warm, it did not deepen or lessen because of Gu Mengmeng's fawning. And Gu Mengmeng recognized this smile, he only smiled like this when he was angry. The angrier he was, the warmer his smile was. I promise, this is the last time, really. I'm not going to be alone anymore. Sometimes, Gu Mengmeng would think that if one of the 4 men in her family changed his profession to torture and extort confessions, then Leah would be the best. He did not need any torture at all, he just had to look at you with a smile and you would want to confess. You said the same thing when you jumped off the cliff on the Moda Mountains. Lee's smile did not diminish, his tone was warm and even his eyes were filled with the calmness of the years, but he was secretly bringing up the past. Gu Mengmeng wrapped her arms around Lee's neck and said coquettishly, Leah, It's not good for you to always hold grudges in your notebook. It's already thousands of years ago. Can you not mention it anymore? Leo raised his brows and said with a sorrowful expression, back then, when you liked me, you said that my beauty was unparalleled and unforgettable. Now that we've been together for 1,000 years, you despise me for having lingering fears and bringing up the past again. I didn't. Gu Mengmeng could only explain 3 words before she was interrupted by Leah. You did. Gu Mengmeng really could not explain herself. She knew that she would get into trouble if she didn't call all her men over when she was in danger. No matter how small the danger was, no matter how insignificant, no matter how daunting it was. Even if she sprained her ankle while walking on the road, she should immediately scratch her ears and cheeks, beat her chest and stomp her feet, and call out the 4 men at home to coax her. It was only reasonable for them to take turns to appease her. Not to mention almost having a dagger stab into his heart. Gu Mengmeng sighed and looked up at Elvis. Hubby, aren't you going to say something for me? Elvis covered his lips and coughed softly. Xiao Meng said she wanted to call you guys over but I stopped her. If you have any grievances, then take it out on me. Leah turned to look at Elvis, then at Gu Mengmeng. He lowered his head and said, I see, then I have nothing more to say. With that, Leah stood up and silently returned to his original spot. The expression on his face was as desolate as one could imagine. It was not a, I have nothing more to say, expression, but a naked I feel bitter in my heart but I won't say it, expression. Aside from the topic. Chapter 1682. Leah. Gu Mengmeng could not bear to see her man look so aggrieved and sullen. Other than Gregory, the other 3 were all at the level of a beast king. Any one of them would be a king who could do whatever he wanted in the beast world. How could she bear to let such a man suffer? Leah smiled bitterly. Publicly, he is the leader. Privately, he is the first partner. I have no right to question his decision. Gu Mengmeng tugged at Li's hand and said, it's not like that. Elvis just wanted to use his own abilities to fight for something for me and I chose to believe in him. If it was you today, I would definitely support you like this. You guys have always been the ones taking care of me and doing this and that for me. What I can do for you guys is really too limited. Elvis rarely needs my support, how can I bear to reject him? You can understand me, right? Leah hugged Gu Mengmeng who was in front of him, then let out a deep breath and said with a hoarse voice, how many times do I have to say it before you understand? You don't have to do anything at all. Your existence itself is already a blessing to us. Gu Mengmeng hugged Li's waist back and asked softly, then you're not angry anymore? Angry? Leah replied simply, but other than being angry, I can't do anything to you. I can only bear with it. Leah. Gu Mengmeng called softly. Leah pursed his lips and asked softly, you said just now that if I want to do something for you, you will support me unconditionally, right? Yeah. Gu Mengmeng replied. Leah smiled and said, all right, remember this promise first. You little liar, don't go back on your words. With that, Leah kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead before letting go of her. Gu Mengmeng had a premonition that this promise of hers was equivalent to selling herself out. She did not know what kind of tricks Leah would come up with in the future. But now, this matter was finally settled. Heaving a sigh of relief, Gu Mengmeng hung back into Elvis's arms and looked up to ask, I heard you and Snake talking about something called Furious Flames. Elvis nodded and replied, according to them, it is the largest underground gang in F country with the widest area of influence and strong abilities. I just took over this gang and now I am the leader of Furious Flames. Gu Mengmeng widened her eyes and looked at Elvis in surprise. She had only slept for one night and her husband had turned into a gang leader. Elvis felt a little uncomfortable under Gu Mengmeng's stare. He cleared his throat and explained, Xiao Meng, I need to have the ability to protect you so that what happened today won't happen again. So... Gu Mengmeng knew that Elvis had misunderstood her, so she wrapped her arms around his neck and chuckled. I'm not unhappy, I'm just curious how you managed to control such a gang in such a short time. Elvis smiled. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng was not angry at him for deciding to take over the fiery flames on his own, Elvis felt much more at ease. He then heaved a sigh of relief and relaxed his entire body. As long as she was not, he was Mengmeng, he. Face. Chapter 1683. By the way. Elvis looked at Leah and said, he is now the second leader of the fiery flames and will be in charge of the internal affairs of the fiery flames in the future. Everything that needs to be decided will be decided by him and I will only be in charge of taking action. Gu Mengmeng burst into laughter. She looked at Elvis and then at Leah, saying, so, the two of you have applied Saint Nazir's management model to fiery flames, and are completely treating fiery flames as a tribe? More or less. Elvis nodded and said, but the fiery flame seems easier to manage than Saint Nazir. Because there are no troublesome females here. Gu Mengmeng nodded in agreement. The men in her family always had more ways to deal with males. Leah composed himself and sat back beside Gu Mengmeng while wagging his tail. He smiled seductively and hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin, saying, Mengmeng, when I was understanding the internal affairs of the fiery flames just now, I discovered something very interesting. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and looked at Leah, waiting for him to continue. Lee's gaze shifted to Snake and he said, although the fiery flames is the biggest gang in F country, they are controlled by others in many aspects. Because a gang of the scale of the fiery flames is not willing to become the claws of the royal family and the royal family, who consider themselves to be noble and virtuous, will not be willing to submit to an underground gang, so the two parties are in a stalemate. But now that Elvis and I have taken over this gang, it will be our Gu family's business. His Highness will take care of it, right? Gu Mengmeng followed Lee's gaze to look at Snake and burst out laughing. She pinched Leah and said, so you want Snake to abuse his power and use his official position for personal gain? Leah shook his head and looked at Gu Mengmeng. Leah nodded in agreement and said, isn't it an unchanging theory that having someone in the government makes things easier? Moreover, even though Elvis and I are in charge of the fiery flames, since when have you not been in charge of our family's business? If he were to restrict the fiery flames, he would be blocking your path to riches. I don't believe that our Prince Snake would do such a treacherous thing. Gu Mengmeng sighed deeply. She understood. This was the treaty of treason that she had just signed. She said that if Leia wanted to do something for her, she would definitely support him. It came true so quickly. Snake did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. The reason was simple. If he cooperated with the fiery flames, it would mean that the fiery flames would not have to submit to the royal family, and the royal family would not have to rely on the fiery flames. Both powers would be under Gu Mengmeng's control. Everything in this world should belong to Gu Mengmeng, so he felt that there was nothing wrong with it. He said lightly, you have to keep a low profile when you do things. Don't push Tu Meng to the limelight. Of course. Leo waved his large tail and coincidentally landed in Gu Mengmeng's arms. Gu Mengmeng hugged Li's large tail and stroked it twice. She also felt that it was strange and smiled. How did she carelessly facilitate the collusion between the government and the bandits in F country? It felt like a dream. From today onwards, Xiao Meng and all her family members will move in here. Snake, do you have any questions? Elvis asked as the first partner. Snake shook his head, indicating that there was no problem. This was the rule of the beast world. Females should stay in the territory of their first partner. Chapter 1684. If it was said that Gu Mengmeng could not understand the concept of taking over the fiery flames in the small room, then when the four men from the Gu family accompanied Gu Mengmeng out of the room, Gu Mengmeng deeply understood the meaning of dark shock. The place that Harold lived in was a very typical European castle. Calling it a villa was not enough to describe its grandeur, it was more like the castle that the ancient European nobles lived in. From the architectural style and size, it was even more magnificent than the one in Snake's house. After all, the royal family had their own rules. No matter how rich you were, you could not live in a more luxurious place than the president. So even though Snake's family was like the sun in the sky, they still maintained a low profile on the surface. But Harold was different. The Fiery Flames was originally the king of the Mafia Empire, so his residence was extremely luxurious in all aspects. Every detail tried to show off his authority as the godfather of the underworld. But this old godfather, who had commanded the world for decades, had offended someone he should not have and ended up in such a pitiful state. Otherwise, he could have continued being the underground king in this building. Not talking about Harold anymore, Gu Mengmeng just felt that she could not help but want to lift up her dress and run around in her crystal shoes as she walked in this building, as if she was a European princess. Looking at Gu Mengmeng's expression, the four men behind her could not help but smile. There was no other reason. If she was happy, it meant that the whole family was happy. If she liked it, it meant that the whole family liked it. Pushing open the main door of the castle, Gu Mengmeng squinted her eyes and looked up to welcome the sunlight shining on her face. And at the same time, a group of mafia members in black suits and black sunglasses standing at the entrance of the castle lowered their heads and shouted in unison, "Queen." This shout gave Gu Mengmeng a shock. The last time there was such a scene was during the first winter sacrifice in Saint Nazaire, when Leah publicly announced that she was the messenger of the beast deity. Although there were not as many people in Saint Nazaire then, but after all, the voices of orcs could not be compared to normal humans, so the effect was not much different from the current one. It had been many years since she was so respected in unison, and Gu Mengmeng felt a little uncomfortable. Turning back to look at Elvis, he only looked back at her with doting and indulgent eyes, saying, "You will always be on my shoulders, a level higher than me. Be it in the beast world or here." So, even though he was the king of fiery flames, he requested all the members to greet Gu Mengmeng before him. He would not allow anyone to be more distinguished than Gu Mengmeng, not even to be on par with her. Even he himself couldn't do it. She must be the most supreme existence in the world. Gu Mengmeng tiptoed and kissed him on the cheek. "Thank you for satisfying my vanity. I like it very much." Gu Mengmeng would no longer use the moral standards of the world to demand herself, because she knew that compared to her understanding, her partners preferred her unbridled manner. Vanity, arrogance, unreasonable, these flaws that ordinary men could not tolerate were incomparably precious treasures in the eyes of her man. They took pride in satisfying her vanity, pride, and vexatiousness, and were deeply happy about it. For example, now that Gu Mengmeng's vanity was satisfied, Elvis felt that everything he did was meaningful and he felt blissful. Out of topic, that's it for today. I just want to say. Chapter 1685. A month passed by in the blink of an eye. Leah had full authority to handle the internal affairs of the Fiery Flames. After displaying his abilities a few times, the Fiery Flames were all in awe of this second leader and no one doubted him anymore. Furthermore, because of Snake's external assistance and cooperation, the Fiery Flames' overall power had increased by leaps and bounds. The entire gang's morale was at its peak, giving off a feeling that they could walk with the wind. So not only did no one want to take revenge for Harold, they instead felt that Elvis and Lee's appearance was a godsend for the Fiery Flames, while Harold was a sinner who had hindered the Fiery Flames' development. Snake had been quite busy recently in order to establish a relationship between the royal family and the Fiery Flames. But luckily, he could see Gu Mingming's happy and carefree smile every night when he returned to the castle to have dinner with Gu Mengmeng. So he felt that his hard work was worth it. After living in the beast world for so many years, Gu Mengmeng had some attachment to her territory. So even though Snake's original residence was good and no one dared to disturb Gu Mengmeng and Snake, she still felt that it was not comfortable to live under someone else's roof. But the castle that Elvis had snatched over was different. This was truly her family's territory, so Gu Mengmeng felt more at ease staying here. Quentin's injuries are almost healed. Cole had arranged for him to accompany Nina and their child to M Country for treatment yesterday. They have the most advanced technology there and the kidney source is already prepared. Leah whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear. Gu Mengmeng nodded before walking into the boxing dojo. She was not afraid to see Nina or Quentin. It was just that the karma between them in the beast world was complicated and could not be cut off. It was not a big deal if they did not remember her, but Gu Mengmeng would feel troubled. After all, the men in her family could not tolerate others bullying her. Don't say that you had your own reasons for being schemed against by Leah. If you can't win against Leah, then you are stupid. If you have the ability, then scheme back. So seeing Quentin one more time, the danger level for Quentin and his wife would increase. Who knew who would be the first to lose control and kill him? Therefore, after she had given him all the compensation she could, it would be best for both of them to not see each other again. Turning to look at Elvis, Gu Mengmeng said, "You are now the leader of the Fiery Flames and your identity is already sensitive, so don't fight again after this round, understand?" Elvis smiled and nodded. "I always listen to Xiao Meng." After getting a satisfactory answer, Gu Mengmeng did not nag anymore. The VIP hall on the second floor was already prepared. Cole stood at the entrance of the VIP hall and welcomed them in a gentlemanly manner. He said with a smile, "I haven't seen you for a month and you've turned from a boxer I discovered to my partner. It seems like my foresight is really good. You're not just a fish in a pond after all." Elvis ignored Cole. After he took over Fiery Flames, he already knew that Cole and Fiery Flames had a lot of business dealings. For Fiery Flames to be able to achieve what it was today in F Country, Cole must have been the mastermind behind the scenes. He cooperated with Raging Flames under his own name, but he held more authority. Herald of the Fiery Flames was just like the leader of the stray beasts in the past, Peter. He seemed to have great power and was extremely awe-inspiring, but in the end, he was just a puppet in Cole's hands. Aside from the topic, it had been a long time since she heard this sentence from Elvis, "I always listen to Xiao Meng." Chapter 1686. Elvis could not be bothered to respond to Cole and just gave Leah a look. Leah walked forward with a smile and said, "Today, we are here to fulfill our promise. Let's not talk about other things for now." "All right." Cole smiled faintly at Lee's long and narrow eyes. He also did not know why. Gu Mengmeng clearly had 4 men by her side, her fiancé in name was Snake, while Elvis was obviously the closest to Gu Mengmeng, but he just had to have the most acute hostility towards this Leah. As long as he met Leah, he would subconsciously raise his guard, as if the person in front of him was not to be underestimated. Gu Mengmeng did not usually care about the internal affairs of the tribe and would not interfere with the internal affairs of the gang. It was just that the frequency of meeting acquaintances was higher recently. To prevent the previous incident from happening again, Gu Mengmeng had no choice but to ask in advance, "Who is my opponent today? Can you show me his information in advance?" Cole was not surprised by Gu Mengmeng's request at all. Ever since she stopped Elvis from strangling Quentin previously, he already knew that she would definitely pay attention to her opponent in this competition. So he handed Gu Mengmeng the opponent's information form that he had prepared in advance. He did not say anything and just stared at her with a smile. Gu Mengmeng completely ignored the expression in Cole's eyes. She only took a glance at the form and held her forehead while sighing, so the world is really small. Elvis glanced at the form and shook his head helplessly. He smiled bitterly and said, after all, he went to the platform of the deity's punishment on your behalf. I will be merciful to him. Gu Meng Meng had left behind many messy debts in the beast world and Barit was one of them. From the first day she came to the beast world, she got to know Barit and implicated him countless times. If it could be said that it was an unintentional mistake due to not understanding the rules of the beast world, then later on, she was pretending to be ignorant. Because Barit had never really confessed to her, she did not have the chance to reject him properly. This dragged on until she stepped down from her position as the messenger of the beast deity and became a beast deity. Standing in the clouds, she saw with her own eyes how Barit defended Saint Nazir to the death for a promise. She also saw with her own eyes how he grew old alone for the rest of his life. The debt of love was the hardest to repay. Leah placed an arm on Elvis's shoulder and glanced at the form. He chuckled and said, "Oh, another familiar face." To be honest, I was still on guard against him in the beginning. After all, Meng Meng was especially caring towards him, hugging and kissing him. I even thought that he would be the third male in our family after me. Unfortunately, he only has a heart full of infatuation, but does not know how to show it in front of Meng Meng. He is a fool who only knows how to silently contribute. Hugging, kissing. These few words triggered Snake's nerves. He could not help but take a step forward to glance at the form and understood. Gu Meng Meng smiled bitterly and helplessly. How many times have I said it? That's because he couldn't swallow at the time, and I had to feed him water with my mouth to save him. And at that time, I didn't know that the barrier between men and women in the beast world was even worse than the Qing dynasty. Let's not talk about this anymore. Chapter 1687. When Leah said that, Gu Meng Meng also turned to look at Cole, as if waiting for his reply. Cole maintained his gentlemanly smile and said, he should be here for the Wolf King. Gu Meng Meng then turned to look at Elvis. Elvis thought for a moment and said, probably out of habit. After all, Barit had been following Elvis since the establishment of Saint Nazir. Putting aside Gu Meng Meng's matter, Barit still had a high degree of acknowledgement towards Elvis as a leader. Gu Meng Meng nodded and said, all right, then act according to the situation later and show mercy. All right. Elvis kissed Gu Meng Meng's forehead before turning to head down to the resting room to prepare. After the previous incident where Elvis tortured Quentin, the audience was even crazier than before. The moment Elvis appeared, the deafening cheers sounded as if they wanted to tear the roof off. Gu Meng Meng stood by the window and looked down at the arena with mixed feelings. Because when Barit appeared, even Gu Meng Meng, who was on the second floor, could deeply feel the gazes and cheers from the audience. It was not support and encouragement, but a kind of excitement, as if they were anticipating him to become a bloody corpse in Elvis's hands in a while. Everyone was looking at him with the cruelest and most expectant gaze, as if the more miserable he was, the more excited they would be. This feeling was very uncomfortable. But Barit did not seem to feel the audience's excitement at all as he suddenly looked up at the one-way glass on the second floor. He clearly could not see anything, but he felt his heart contract, as if there was something he desperately desired behind that glass. Gu Meng Meng instinctively took a step back. Even though she clearly knew that Barit could not really see her, the desire and persistence in his eyes still made Gu Meng Meng's heart tighten. In the beast world, she had already delayed his entire life. To Barit, not seeing each other for the rest of his life would be the real mercy. Snake stood behind Gu Meng Meng, using his chest to catch her steadily. If there was anyone who could best understand Gu Meng Meng's feelings, it would probably be him, who had shared her memories. Some people and some things can't be avoided. Snakle said softly as he held Gu Meng Meng's little hand with his large hand and kissed it. His stubbornness led him to you. If you don't meet him, his life will be in vain. Compared to me, he's not greedy. He just wants to look at you a few more times. Gu Mengmeng turned back to look at Snake, her eyes filled with suspicion. Snake had always been the most narrow-minded. The selfishness and possessiveness of a snake were fully displayed in him. Elvis and Leah had become Gu Mingming's partners before him, so he could not do anything about it. Gregory had protected him for 1,000 years, so he owed him a debt of gratitude and allowed him to join Gu Mingming's family. Other than that, he did not allow anyone to get close to Gu Mengmeng, regardless of gender. Why did he suddenly change today? Before Gu Mengmeng could finish her question, Snake smirked and continued, as long as he has the ability to break through the 4 of our defenses, we'll let him see what he wants. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and shook her head. She thought to herself, Snake is indeed Snake. There is no such thing as a sudden change in style. Chapter 1688. However, something unexpected happened once again. Elvis stood at the same spot and did not even move an inch. With just a sudden glare, Barit fell to the ground with a thud and could not get up. The audience looked at each other but no one could say a word. They had spent so much money just to watch a boxing match where no one even moved a finger. What happened to the promised bloody violence? Wasn't breaking one's arm the lowest standard? Cries of refunds rose one after another in the arena and the audience's dissatisfaction rose to the top. Gu Mengmeng was also extremely astonished by this. She did not understand what was going on. On the other hand, Leo laughed softly and told Cole, "Can I trouble you to switch off the lights and surveillance cameras in the arena for 5 seconds?" Cole did not ask for the reason and just instructed through the walkie-talkie. In the next moment, Leah pushed open the windows on the 2nd floor and the arena fell into absolute darkness at the same time. A gust of wind blew in from the windows and following the sound of Leah closing the windows, the lights were switched on again. Elvis, who was originally standing downstairs, was already standing in front of Gu Mengmeng. As for the spectators who were clamoring for a refund, at that moment, the area below the boxing arena was like a huge drunken scene, with everyone sprawled on the ground. And what attracted Gu Mingming's attention was the leopard in Elvis's hands. Gu Mengmeng could not believe her own eyes. She had just felt the Beast King's coercion released by Elvis. As she had once been a beast deity, she was immune to such coercion and did not faint like the people downstairs. But why did Barit reveal his true form? This was the modern world and not the beast world. Barit, he is the real Barit. Elvis casually threw Barit to Gregory, who had also revealed his true form due to the Beast King's coercion. He said, "We'll talk about the details when we get back." Gu Mengmeng understood that Elvis was avoiding Cole. Gu Mengmeng also turned back to look at Cole. She just frowned and did not say a word. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng, Leah carried Barit and Snake carried Gregory. The group left the arena through the employees' passageway and returned to the villa. Barit woke up in the evening. Without anyone guiding him, he easily found Gu Mengmeng in the back garden based on her scent. Gu Mengmeng turned around and met Barit's eyes. There was no need for any other proof. The way he looked at her was the best evidence. He was the real Barit, from the beast world. "Why are you here?" Gu Mengmeng asked the question in her heart. Barit pursed his lips. Even though he knew he did not have the right to look at Gu Mengmeng like that, he could not shift his gaze away. He just replied in a hoarse voice, "Because I returned to the embrace of the beast deity after I died. I begged him to let me return to your side and continue protecting you." Vaguely. "I think I saw Oriton. Then when I opened my eyes, I was already here." Gu Mengmeng facepalmed. She understood. Back then, in order to choose a suitable next messenger of the beast deity, she wrote a novel about the beast world and published it on the internet. And the reader who was finally chosen to be the next messenger of the beast deity saw all of Barit's silent contributions and was extremely touched. In addition to Oritin and Barit's revolutionary friendship. Chapter 1689. Then what plans do you have from now on? Gu Mengmeng sighed and asked softly. Barit smiled and said, join the fiery flames and follow Elvis to protect you. I don't want much, just the same as before. Gu Mengmeng remained silent for a long while before finally nodding her head. It was not that she did not want to persuade Barit to let go, but how many times did she persuade him in the beast world? Did he even hear a single sentence? Back then, he did not listen to her advice and chased after her after experiencing life and death. How could he give up now? Barit was also very clear about his position. No matter how much he yearned for it, he would not take another step towards Gu Mengmeng. Because he knew that as long as he took that small step, the four males around her and even Gu Mengmeng herself would push him further away. The closest he could get to her was here. Barit turned around to report to Leah while Gu Mengmeng huddled in Elvis's arms and sighed faintly, saying, do you think that my successor as the messenger of the beast deity will throw everyone in the beast world over to me? It's hard to say. Elvis said, that little female is even more mischievous than you. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. Perhaps this was called following the example of one's superiors. In the past, she used Wang Xiaoxin's name to swindle people everywhere, while her successor used her to run amok everywhere. Like author, like reader. Shaking her head, she said, forget it, let's not think about these first. If we really meet, we'll talk about it. Elvis kissed the top of Gu Mengmeng's head deeply, then said with a faint gaze, Xiao Meng, I have something to tell you. Gu Mengmeng replied with a single room and looked up at Elvis. Elvis pursed his lips and said, I have a present for you. Gu Mengmeng's lips curved and her eyes curved into a smile. She opened her palms and said, what is it? Elvis held her little hand and pressed it down, saying, I'll give it to you tonight. Gu Mengmeng blushed and lowered her head on Elvis's chest, saying, annoying. Elvis was a little confused from being hung down, until he saw the flirtatious look in her eyes and brows. He then understood that she had misunderstood his intentions. He could not help but rub her little head and said, if you want it, I will satisfy you later. But that's not the present I'm giving you today. Who wants it? Gu Mengmeng immediately retorted, but it was a pity that she did not have any imposing manner. Elvis wrapped his arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist and pressed his chin against her ear. I want it. Gu Mengmeng shut her mouth. She felt that Elvis's it's alright, I'll take the blame for you tone made her even more obvious. What gift is it? So mysterious, Gu Mengmeng mumbled. But Elvis only smiled and did not reply. That night, one luxury car after another drove into the castle in an orderly manner. One by one could tell that they were extremely important big shots appeared in the parlor of the castle. Clusters of white roses decorated the place like a fairy tale world. The bright pearl shone as if it was daytime. Those who were usually filled with murderous intent were also exchanging toasts with each other. While exchanging toasts and toasts, there was a hint of joy on their faces, making the atmosphere rather harmonious. And when Gu Mengmeng appeared wearing an elegant evening gown under Elvis's lead, she naturally attracted everyone's attention. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.